We're coming on the air with two communities in shock, in mourning, and furious after hate crimes on both coasts, starting in Buffalo, where we're just now getting an update on what happened when a suspect opened fire at a grocery store in a black neighborhood, and in Southern California, where a man of Chinese descent targeted a Taiwanese church, stopped by a man many now call a hero. We are live in both communities with what we're just hearing from police and those victims' families. Plus, one of the country's top baby formula makers getting ready to open back up in this nationwide formula crisis. What the Surgeon General's telling me tonight on when parents could see some relief and what else the White House plans to do. And a ton of new twists in that high-profile primary in Pennsylvania tomorrow, with a Republican candidate not endorsed by former President Trump surging towards the front of the pack, and the top Democrat in that primary now in the hospital. Plus, our NBC News exclusive interview you will only see on this network, the first one-on-one with the hero passenger who landed a plane when the pilot went unconscious. And Amber Heard is back on the stand today, accusing her ex-husband, Johnny Depp, of torture for allegedly lying about the abuse. Why so many people on social media seem to be taking Depp's side in all this. Hey, I'm Hallie, and tonight we're learning the 18-year-old white man accused of killing 10 black people at a supermarket in Buffalo was actually in town a couple months ago. That's what police are just saying. This is a timeline that puts the shooter in the city before he scouted that supermarket, police say last week, as we're hearing more now from the families of the victims in that racist attack. And here's who those victims are. Again, these are people just showing up to buy groceries. That's it. Hayward Patterson, Catherine Massey, Celestine Cheney, Roberta Drury, Andre McNeil, Margus Morrison, Geraldine Talley, Pearl Young. There's Aaron Salter, the security guard who tried to stop the shooter. And there's 86-year-old Ruth Whitfield, who lived in Buffalo for 5 decades. Her kids say her husband, who's 88 and lives in a nursing home, doesn't even know yet. And they say this should never have happened.
He took away my mother and my best friend. How dare you?
What are we supposed to do with all of this anger, with all of this pain?
For those people who do not see us, how dare you not see us as American?
Some of the family members referring to a manifesto, a racist document, apparently written by the shooter, filled with a whole bunch of white supremacist lies. That's why the FBI is investigating this as a hate crime. Police say the shooter wanted to kill as many black people as possible. With Buffalo, just one of many communities affected by gun violence so far this year. More than 200, according to the Gun Violence Archive, since January. That's about 10 attacks a week where 4 or more people are shot. We're also looking ahead to President Biden, set to visit Buffalo tomorrow to talk about what he calls the hate that remains a stain on the soul of America. Emily Aketa is in Buffalo for us. And Emily, we just got an update from police in maybe the last hour. I was watching it actually right before heading up to studio. And the police just said this alleged shooter had been in Buffalo just a couple months ago. You actually, I think, talked with some of these grocery store employees who saw him back in March.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. Really just another disturbing detail in this investigation. We have been reporting, that the suspect, police say, was in this area the day before the attack, canvassing the area, looking for a spot to carry out his attack. But now the police commissioner confirming that he was also in Buffalo months ago, back in March, and several employees that we're talking with confirming that timeline. 2 I spoke with who hid in the back of the supermarket while the shooting panned out tell me that they recalled seeing him again several weeks ago. One woman, notably who was white, says that the suspect had come up to her and said, you don't belong here. So really, yet again, another disturbing detail as we continue to learn more about what led up to this horrific attack, Hallie.
The Erie County DA says they're also looking into threats other people have made in calls to businesses, for example, or on social media too, right? How does this play into that?
Yeah, as if this community hasn't been through enough. We're hearing that threats are continuing to be made. We're hearing from multiple people on social media. Actually, authorities saying that they've actually already arrested one man with a copycat-style threat to a brewery and a pizza shop. And if convicted, they say he will face up to 7 years in jail. They are underscoring that people need to stop doing these threats because they're cracking down, Hallie.
What's, I think, important for people to know here on the context piece, right? And there has been the discussion about the shooter and this racist manifesto. We're going to talk more about that. But it's about the supermarket in this area that is called by some a food desert, right? There wasn't much in this particular neighborhood in Buffalo, but Tops, the supermarket chain, Tops was there. people would go. They knew each other. One pastor said, without this store, the neighborhood, really is a food desert. There's not many other options. Let me actually play that soundbite real quick.
This grocery store was fought for by our community. We wanted and needed this grocery store. And so now to have such a tragic crime happen in the place where we gather safely is devastating.
This shooting was an attack on the heart of this neighborhood in Buffalo. And Emily, I felt like you could hear that pain when we heard from Mrs. Whitfield's family, right? Her family members who are just in grief. They are gutted, and you can see that.
Yeah, absolutely. This grocery store is really the only one for a lot of people in this community within walking distance. But not only was this critical for them to be able to access food, but also it was a critical gathering place, this place of unification. Everyone had shared this supermarket in common. And speaking with a number of people on the ground here, we've heard about a range of emotions. Anger, sorrow, fear, confusion. But I will say another one, a common thread we hear from person after person is determination. This determination that this community will rebound, that they will come together, that they are Jefferson strong, the supermarket being on Jefferson Avenue. Hallie?
Emily Aketa, thank you so much for that reporting. We're going to talk more about that attack in Buffalo a little later in the show. But for now, I want to go across the country to California, where we just got some new details about the victim being called a hero tonight after another apparent hate crime, this time against the Taiwanese community at a church just south of Los Angeles. This man's name is Dr. John Chang. You see him here. Police say he charged at the shooter and tried to get his gun away so that the other people in church could hog-tie the shooter up with an extension cord, basically. In just the last couple hours, we heard from the sheriff in Orange County, who says there is no doubt Dr. Chang saved lives.
Dr. Chang is a hero in this incident. Without the actions of Dr. Chang, it is no doubt that there will be numerous additional victims in this crime.
It's incredible. Police have ID'd the shooter as a 68-year-old U.S. citizen who immigrated from China and was from Las Vegas. He's being charged with murder, and the FBI says they're looking into this as essentially a hate crime, a hate incident. Maggie Vespa is in Los Angeles. Maggie, let me take this in several chunks here, right? Sort of the victims, the motive, and then this incredible story of heroism that we heard. Talk to me about some of the other victims here, because other people were hurt in what had happened in this.
Exactly. 6 people, as you know, shot total. Dr. Chang just ID'd as the person who died. So that means we have 5 more. And we got updates on their conditions today. We had been told that 4 were critically injured of those 5. Authorities saying 2 of them are now in good condition, 2 are in stable condition, and then they weren't able to get an update on the 5th. But safe to say most are recovering, which is good news. They also confirmed to us they're between the ages of 66 and 92. 2 of them, a married couple in their 80s. Hallie.
I heard one of the officials describe this as a politically motivated hate incident. That's the quote there, right? So talk about the politically motivated of this piece of this, because there are, tensions between China and Taiwan that seems to have played a role here.
Definitely. You mentioned the alleged shooter, David Chow, is from China. Authorities saying today in this press conference that he was a Chinese native. He came to the United States, they said, years ago. He's lived in multiple states in the U.S., including Texas. Now they say he lives in Nevada. They said they didn't want to give too many details about kind of how they're building this case tied to that this specific motive, but they did say they have, quote, a lot of evidence. And then they divulged this detail about Chow's background. Take a listen.
I believe his hatred of Taiwan manifested when he was residing there in previous years, possibly in his youth. He was not well received while living there, according to what we believe we've collected so far, and that's manifested into this hatred.
So once again, David Chow now named as the suspect in this shooting. He's 68 years old. And as you said, Hallie, federal authorities opening a hate crime investigation into this case. They also noted that he came to the church heavily armed with multiple bags containing additional ammunition and Molotov cocktails.
And I think, Maggie, police said that he also chained the doors of the church shut. And when you think about that, you think how much worse this could have been. Horrific that one person lost his life. Remarkable that more people didn't, thanks to the heroism of Dr. Chang. Tell us more about that, because this is somebody who jumped into action, helped take down the shooter so that others could subdue him, and gave his own life in the process.
Definitely, and authorities noting that he did that after he realized, they say, that Chow had chained the door shut. He had also, they said, put super glue in the locks to trap people inside. They said Dr. Chang looked around and realized he's surrounded by people again in their 60s through their 90s, and he charged the shooter. And they said that he was able to kind of tackle the shooter, was wounded in the process. The shooter shooting him once, tried to shoot him a second time, authorities said, and the gun jammed. And that's when they say the other parishioners were able to, the other congregants were able to move in, tackle the gunman, hog tie him with extension cords, and take away 2 handguns, keeping him there until authorities arrived. They're calling that exceptional heroism. And again, as you heard, calling Dr. Chang an absolute hero.
Maggie Vespa live for us with that story. Maggie, thank you for staying on top of those details for us. A lot developing there. Within just the last hour, the FDA is saying it's given formula maker Abbott the green light to start moving forward on a path to reopen and start making more formula again. And that any minute, we're expecting the agency could announce a plan to bring in baby formula from other countries to help with the shortage, those empty shelves you're seeing here in this country. Right now, we don't actually import formula from abroad, but the FDA commissioner has hinted that may have to change to give families here more of what they need to feed their babies. The shutdown of the Abbott nutritional facility because of possible contamination, along with supply chain issues, that has come together to create basically a crisis. This afternoon, the White House press secretary talked about that crisis. She says officials have been in touch with these 4 big infant formula manufacturers to ID problems and solutions. They're also talking with big retailers like Walmart, Target, Amazon to see which parts of the country are most at risk in this crisis. Okay, so what's the timeline for things to actually get better for frustrated parents facing those empty shelves? I asked that to the Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, himself a dad whose son needed formula when he was a baby. Here's what he told me. So by when? When do you see this being resolved? June, July, October?
Well, I think we're going to
Tomorrow?
start seeing. Well, I think we're going to continue to see improvements over the next several weeks. We know that what Abbott has said about its plant in Michigan is that even if that comes, gets the green light to open up now, and the FDA is working very hard to get that green light, but they want to make sure safety is in place, it will take Abbott several weeks to get production going, and then several weeks after that to ramp it up.
I want to bring in now Josh Letterman, who's outside the White House, joining us now on this. A lot of new developments, it seems, on the shortage front today. One of the big takeaways, right, is the Biden administration getting involved with the logistical steps here. And I think notably, optically, putting out a lot of people over the last 48 hours we've seen over the airwaves, right, talking about this, talking about what the administration is trying to do. You heard Dr. Murthy lay out the timeline there. Bring us up to speed on what other steps the White House is taking.
Well, it is a lot of people they put out, Hallie, because the Biden administration clearly knows this is a major political problem for them heading into the midterms, and so they want to make sure that it's very clear to the public exactly what they are doing, which involves trying to tackle every single part of this crisis. You mentioned the logistical hurdles, the supply chain issues. We heard today from Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, who said they're actually considering waiving some of the restrictions on how many hours truck drivers can drive so that they can get this formula onto shelves. But aside from that, the Biden administration now pushing the manufacturers of these major 4 companies to start making more of this as quickly as possible, while they also address the challenges in people actually being able to buy it through the WIC program, which actually constitutes about half of all the baby formula that is made in the United States. Now, the Biden administration is trying to free people up so that if you go to the store, your specific brand that you're supposed to be able to buy through the WIC card isn't available, so you can actually buy whatever there is on the shelves. So those some of the elements they're trying to tackle as they see if they can try to speed this up and hopefully have it not be months, but more like weeks until they get more formula on the shelves.
There's also this other piece of this, which is why this became such a crisis point in the first place. Right. And that was the shutdown of this Abbott plant and the demand for answers from the administration and the demand that the administration and members of Congress are making as to what in the world happened at this plant that was, linked to these concerns. There was this recall, et cetera, et cetera. Where does that investigation stand, Josh, right? Because now we know that Abbott has the green light to start on the path towards reopening this plant. But as many people have pointed out, you got to know what went wrong to make sure it doesn't happen again. So where does that stand?
Yeah, and President Biden had said that the only thing that he could have done differently was basically be a mind reader and have known in advance this was going to happen. But now you see the Biden administration and the FDA acknowledging that it was months, Hallie, months between the time that these problems at that plant first came about to light and the time when the FDA actually sent inspectors to that plant in Michigan to figure out whether there was an issue and whether this was safe. So the FDA will be looking at why there was such a lag in that response, as well as if there's anything they could do differently in the future to be able to get a handle on this kind of a problem much, much sooner.
Josh Letterman outside the White House. Josh, thanks for that update. I know we're going to be talking more about this in the days to come. Appreciate it. Some other news out of the White House today. A senior Biden administration official telling NBC News the president plans to send troops back to Somalia. This is a reversal from what we saw in the prior administration when former President Trump withdrew just about all 750 troops that had been stationed in that country. Now, fewer than 500 will go. The official says the mission is to help fight the extremist group al-Shabaab. To the war in Ukraine now, because in a historic move today, Sweden, which typically has kept its neutrality on matters related with Russia, is formally taking steps to join NATO. They say that's the best way to protect themselves, given how much things have changed with Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Putin's response? The president of Russia? He says, well, Sweden and Finland's recent decisions to join NATO don't pose an immediate threat to Russia, but says they will respond. All of it's happening as Ukrainian forces are gaining ground in Kharkiv. Look at this new video. This is them posing. You see that blue and yellow outpost? According to a senior defense official, they've pushed back the Russians to basically the Russian border, right? Just a mile or two away from that border after a successful counterattack. So what you're seeing when they stand at this post in the Ukrainian flag's colors are them essentially saying, hey, we've moved troops out of our territory. Cal Perry joins me now. So let me take the diplomatic front first, Cal, because that is where some of the really significant stuff is happening today. I spoke with a former NATO Supreme Commander, right, Allied Commander James Stavridis. And Admiral Stavridis told me this is an incredibly significant move, that you have Sweden now joining Finland and trying to basically strengthen NATO. It's exactly what Russia did not want to see. And yet Putin's response is almost overtly chill, right? He's like, well, no, but, not a huge deal. He doesn't have many options on that front.
Yeah, really surprising response. I think because people here expected saber rattling. I mean, in the past, that's what we've had from Russia, from Putin, from the defense minister. And instead, we had this, quote, no immediate threat. And look, we should remind our viewers, 800-mile-long border is shared between these countries that are going to join and Russia. There was some talk. Now, Putin did sort of qualify those remarks and say, depending on how this goes and depending on the military structure that they put into place, maybe we move some military assets, but not sort of the saber rattling that we're used to. A huge boost for the Ukrainians, a huge boost for President Zelensky. I mean, this is, the world being on notice that Russia had invaded Ukraine and Zelensky's message that you have to fight them here and not fight them there and that this is for democracy. And then these two nations joining, I think gives a lot of credence to that and strengthens the NATO alliance. So here people are going to celebrate it, certainly.
Okay. That's the diplomatic front. Talk to me about the military front on the ground with this regional government in Ukraine saying, yes, in fact, we have pushed Russian troops back to the Russian border in this one area. But we're also hearing a senior defense official today say Russia's firing a bunch of long-range missiles at Lviv from submarines, right? What is the state of where things stand and specifically the Ukrainian resistance?
So if you look at it as kind of a three-front war, the northern front, you have this astonishing video outside of Kharkiv of these Ukrainian soldiers at this border post. They have liberated at least 6 villages in and around Kharkiv. And again, this platoon of Ukrainian soldiers broke through Russian lines. So it tells you Russian lines are a bit scattered. It tells you that they're withdrawing and they're doing so haphazardly. So big gains on that front. In the eastern front, you have significant shelling in the Donbass, though you have counterattacks in which Ukrainians say they are killing hundreds of Russian soldiers, that they are inflicting major damage. And then this southern front, which you've mentioned, submarines now firing cruise missiles at the western part of the country at Lviv. So you have the Russians lashing out at these industrial targets, at these infrastructure targets, and making either no gains or reverse gains on the ground when it comes to this on-the-ground combat. It is the story emerging from this war, right, that Russia is having disappointing gains on the ground, so they're turning to what they can do, which is airstrikes. And according to NATO officials, look, they're saying expect more cyber attacks, right, back to basics. That's sort of what we're hearing because, again, you look at Kharkiv, the Russians are moving in reverse. They are retreating. Hallie.
That's right. Cal Perry live for us in Kyiv tonight in Ukraine. Cal, thank you. Speaking of Russia, did you hear this? Today, McDonald's says they're selling their business. in that country, just a couple months after announcing they'd be pausing operations back when the invasion first started. So now McDonald's is taking it a step further, saying that they're out because of the unpredictable operating environment and because of what you see on screen. The statement here that continued ownership of the business in Russia is no longer tenable, they say, nor is it consistent with McDonald's values. Check out all these other businesses in the West that have pulled out of operations in different ways. Apple paused sales. Netflix stopped future projects. In this case, McDonald's is, as they say, de-arching, removing the name, the logos, the menu, the branding from more than 800 locations in Russia. Keep in mind, though, that in their statement today, they ended with, quote, until we meet again. Jake Ward now, our business and tech correspondent, joins me. So, Jake, we covered this story from the business angle when companies began suspending operations back in March. So talk to me about the timing now. Why now in mid-May is McDonald's making this move?
Well, I think it just has to do, Hallie, with the extraordinary cost of pulling out of an operation that employs more than 60,000 Russians. You know, they estimate that McDonald's will involve a write-off of about $1.2 to $1.4 billion with a B by pulling out in this case. And so it's just not something that any multinational can take lightly. In this case, they seem to have made it, you know, sort of understood that this conflict is not going away anytime soon, that the invasion is not going to end. You know, perhaps it's the fact of this big military celebration in the last weeks and no change to the rhetoric. Who knows exactly what it is, but I'm sure it was a combination in this case of that extraordinary cost of pulling out. And as the president and CEO wrote to his owner-operators in a message today, it is impossible to ignore the humanitarian crisis caused by the war in Ukraine, he wrote, and it is impossible to imagine the Golden Arches representing the same hope and promise that led us to enter the Russian market 32 years ago. Hallie.
There's this reported idea, I guess, that Russia's been developing like a replacement for McDonald's, looking at this moment coming. Almost identical branding called Uncle Vanya. This is it, right? So it's like the arches, but on their side and with a line. I don't know. You got to think about this, too, Jake, though, as this is it feels like a very visible symbol to the Russian people of what is happening, right? And the impact of Putin's war in Ukraine.
That's absolutely right. I mean, you have to think back, right? McDonald's was the first big Western multinational to make its way into the Soviet Union. Back in 1990, after 14 years of negotiation, they finally opened that first great McDonald's, the huge 650-seat McDonald's on the Red Square. And that really was the symbol at the time of glasnost, the opening up of all of it. You know, then you had 8 years later, Mikhail Gorbachev showing up in a Pizza Hut commercial, being saluted by Russian diners, you know, with a piece of pizza in his hand. Pizza Hut is out of there too. Yum Brands has announced that they are pulling out as well. I mean, we're talking here about, you know, a real isolation of Russia, not just from the information sphere, which you and I have talked about so much, but we're talking physically about the pulling out over and over again. Starbucks, Pizza Hut, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi, all of these guys are coming out, and I think with them you're going to see this deepening isolation and this huge psychological impact to the Russian people, many of whom have grown up with these Western amenities. And now they're slowly but surely being cut off, Hallie.
Jake Ward, thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Coming up, we mentioned there's this white supremacist ideology out there that allegedly motivated the Buffalo shooter. We're going to have more on that racist great replacement theory and when you might have heard it mentioned recently before. Plus, JetBlue not taking no for an answer. We've got details on its plan for a hostile takeover of Spirit Airlines coming up in the 5 Things. Back to Buffalo now, and more on that massacre there and how officials are looking into a document, a manifesto, apparently written by the suspect, that lays out this white supremacist lie known as the Great Replacement. It's a conspiracy based on a totally false idea that people of color, Jewish people, Muslim people, that they're all trying to get rid of anybody who's basically not of white European descent. It's not just Buffalo. This is a white supremacist ideology that has influenced several big mass shootings, not just in the U.S., but around the world. So we're breaking down what it is and how it's gotten more popular. The racist conspiracy, now known as the Great Replacement, has its roots in France, popularized by a contemporary writer, Renaud Camus. In his writings, Camus pushes lies about non-white immigrants wanting to make white Europeans extinct, according to the Anti-Defamation League. Basically, it's a core tenet of white supremacist ideologies. And as the National Immigrant Forum advocacy group explains, it's got a few main elements, including rhetoric about invasion by people of color, lies about so-called voter replacement, and anti-Semitism. The conspiracy has been referenced a lot, like at Charlottesville. And these white supremacist lies have influenced people who have taken hundreds of lives. 77 in Norway from a far-right terrorist, or 51 dead in New Zealand at 2 mosques, 11 dead at a synagogue in Pittsburgh, 23 dead at a Walmart in El Paso, or now, just this weekend in Buffalo, 10 people dead, killed because they were black. A theory once seen as fringe, now alluded to in more mainstream conservative circles. From the most popular host on Fox News.
In order to win and maintain power, Democrats plan to change the population of the country.
To one of the top Republicans in the House, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who last year ran an ad accusing Democrats of planning a permanent election insurrection by granting voting rights to undocumented immigrants to overthrow the government. And comments like that are facing pushback from some Republicans, like Congresswoman Liz Cheney, who's calling on GOP leaders to, in her words, renounce and reject these views and those who hold them. Congresswoman Stefanik's senior campaign advisor is saying today on Facebook that she, quote, never advocated for any racist position or made a racist statement, adding that she opposes mass amnesty for illegal immigrants. Again, that's the statement from an advisor to the Congresswoman. She immediately followed that post, the Congresswoman did, with one of her own, again, falsely claiming Democrats want undocumented immigrants to vote as a core part of this Great Replacement conspiracy. When we talk about mass shootings, right, when you talk about things like this, they raise questions about the role and responsibility of online social media sites in allowing some of this violent and hateful content. We're talking about it because it looked like this suspect in Buffalo appeared to be actively involved in some online communities devoted to guns, to tactical gear, to racist ideologies, according to social media posts. Officials say he live-streamed the attack on Twitch, and he allegedly talked about his plans for the shooting on the site 4chan. Some of the platforms say they reacted fast to ban accounts that appeared to belong to the alleged shooter. But the fact that the response did not prevent the video of attack from being spread widely on other sites also raises the issue of whether the ability to live stream itself should be so easily accessible. These are some big questions. Let me bring in Ben Collins, and let me start with this live streaming thing, right? Because Twitch says it took down the shooting live stream in 2 minutes. Social media and content moderation experts said that was like reasonably the best that could be expected. But as we've said, all it takes is for somebody, right, to record that live stream, and it sort of lives forever on the internet, sometimes and in some ways. Talk about the response from Twitch and the scrutiny, the microscope Twitch is under now.
Yeah, first of all, probably not true, considering the video that we've seen around is longer than 2 minutes, so I don't really know where they're getting that number from. But the most important thing here is that he probably didn't post it to Facebook because the Christchurch shooter posted it to Facebook, and that got flagged, and that was not archivable. The big thing Twitch served as was a vehicle to have a link, a public link, to post in other platforms. Places like 4chan, which will never take anything like this down. Places like Discord, where he planned this for months in a Discord server. People seem to know that this was about to happen because he planned this out for months. He had various different places he wanted to target and wound up at Tops and started planning out things of where he should put his car once he got to the supermarket. So these sorts of places are going to serve as vehicles to get to these other places like Twitch, the more civilian parts of the internet, Twitch or YouTube or Facebook. That's how this goes now. They use those civilian places because it's easy to upload that stuff. In fact, he said in his manifesto he's going to check Twitch and he's going to check Discord and check 4chan to make sure that Twitch stream was even working once he got out of the car.
Talk to me about, you mentioned 4chan. We talked about 4chan in the introduction here, and there are experts who say basically it's a gathering space for extremists. I know you know 4chan well. You knew 4chan before it was 4chan, Ben. What is the onus on social media companies when it relates to that particular site or platforms like 4chan where extremists like this suspected shooter gather?
Yeah, it's really complicated. 4chan is not owned by anyone in the United States. Right. 8chan was a pariah in part because its owners were public figures. They were American-born. one of its owners, the son of its owner and one of its moderators is now running for Congress in Arizona. They were contactable by American press. That is not the case with 4chan. That said, lots of links to 4chan on places like Twitter are just not allowed. Same thing goes for places like Reddit. You can silo this website, but at the end of the day, pretty much anything is allowed. 4chan is not just a menace in American society. So if Americans shut off access to this website, it's still going to be a force with organized crime in Japan, which it has been a force for years. It's a large website where you can conduct an influence operation very easily. Everything is extremely anonymous. It is the most anonymous website that is available. So even if you shut it down in America, it might still exist through VPNs anyway.
It's not just social media. It's not just online, right? You had the top Democrat in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, just in the last couple of minutes here, talking about the role and responsibility of television, pointing specifically to Fox News. Watch.
If organizations like Fox News truly want to condemn this weekend's violence, they need to stop spreading ideas like replacement theory on their shows.
This goes back to the piece we ran right before we brought you in. We are reaching out to Fox for any response to that. But how do you see that playing into this?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is not illegal speech. It shouldn't be illegal speech. But you do have some responsibility as a human being to try to not take things from 4chan and put them on your air. The reason this manifesto read as if, it was more political than usual or, read closer hued to the mainstream is because the mainstream moved closer to the stuff that was on 8chan 2 years ago. This guy took for granted that everyone knew what great replacement theory already was when he started writing his manifesto. And he probably is not wrong. On Fox News, this is a regular talking point, talking about replacement of whites in America in the electorate. The difference is this guy had a call to action. That's where you find it. You find the calls to action on 4chan. But at the end of the day, Tucker Carlson has made this a mainstream talking point over the last 2 years. And that was the point from these 4chan and 8chan shooters 2 years ago.
Ben Collins, live for us, breaking that down. Ben, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is blasting his own country's COVID response after 8 deaths and almost 400,000 fever cases were reported today. The country's dealing with delays in medicine deliveries. The military has been ordered to help fight the outbreak. Number 2, the European Union is dropping its mask mandate for people in airports and on flights. The EU Aviation Safety Agency says the move matches the rules for most public transportation across Europe. But listen, individual airlines could still recommend or require masks on planes. So if you're traveling overseas anytime soon, something to think about. Number 3, jury selection started today for a former Hillary Clinton campaign lawyer accused of lying to the FBI. Michael Sussman is charged with making a false statement to the government about alleged secret communications between the 2016 Trump campaign and Russia. It's the first trial for special counsel John Durham, who's looking into potential misconduct in the origins of that Trump-Russia investigation. Number 4, JetBlue launching a hostile takeover bid for Spirit Airlines after Spirit rejected their $3.5 billion offer earlier this month. Spirit turned it down to stick with an earlier deal to merge with fellow budget airline Frontier. Well, now JetBlue is trying to get Spirit shareholders to vote against the Frontier deal so they can take over. A little bit of backroom airline C-suite drama. Number 5, English soccer player Jake Daniels says he's gay. He made the announcement at the end of his first season as a professional player with the Blackpool Football Club. And here's why this is significant. He's the first active, openly gay UK soccer player in more than 3 decades. Daniels says he finally feels ready to come out and be himself. Still to come. Congressman Madison Cawthorn's fate is now in the hands of voters who hit the polls tomorrow. But the North Carolina lawmaker may be facing a fight for his political career. We're going to explain. And then you've got some interesting twists in this Pennsylvania Senate race, some new ones, including a medical emergency for one candidate and a late surge for another. We're talking about that live from PA next. We are finally now hearing from the guy who had to take over and land a plane after the pilot went unconscious. Remember that bonkers story from last week? We'll tell you what he told NBC News in an exclusive interview you will only see on this network. That's a little later in the show. We are 1 day away from Pennsylvania's primaries for its open Senate seat. And in the last week or so, this race really has been upended on the Republican side. It really is anybody's race. Far-right candidate Kathy Barnett, according to some new polling, surging from behind. A recent poll showing her support has doubled since March. She's now looking neck and neck with Trump-backed candidate Dr. Mehmet Oz and former hedge fund executive David McCormick. And her candidacy seems to be benefiting from that leaked Supreme Court draft a couple weeks ago on Roe versus Wade, suggesting a majority of justices are ready to overturn that landmark abortion rights ruling. Barnett's stance is to outlaw all abortion, telling her personal story of her mother, who had her at age 12.
I am the byproduct of a rape, and I have been very firm in the fact that I am unapologetically pro-life. I believe that that is a life.
On the Democratic side, meantime, you have frontrunner John Fetterman, who spent the weekend in the hospital after having a stroke on Friday. His campaign today says he's not going to be at his event tomorrow night, primary night, election night, basically, on Tuesday, of course. I want to bring in now Dasha Burns, who's at a Barnett event in Scranton. Dasha, just to set the stakes here, this is one of the most competitive open Senate races in the country, right? Which is why there's so much attention on both of these primaries, and particularly on the Republican side, where, as we said, it really is anybody's ball. Kathy Barnett is coming up against two men with millions of dollars, and you have some establishment Republicans who seem to be getting kind of nervous here, that she may be too extreme to win in this state. You are on the ground. Tell me what it's been like and what you're seeing.
The way it's been is like a complete roller coaster ride, Hallie, and I'm using my inside voice here because we are just outside of the room where Barnett is expected to speak any minute now, but the twists just keep on coming, especially in the last 24 hours or so in this race. Look, I spoke to Barnett first back in February, and at that time she almost foreshadowed this. She said, look, you've got these two guys from out of state who are spending millions of dollars, and I'm in these rooms and I'm talking to voters and I'm hearing that they're looking for something different, and I have something brewing here. And to her credit, when I've been talking to voters for the last several months, Hallie, I have been hearing that same thing. People have been uncomfortable with these guys that have been the front runners for months now, and they seem to have been looking for a third option. Now, she spiked right at the same time, as you mentioned, as the leaked opinion from the Supreme Court on Roe, and she has been sort of the ultra MAGA candidate, despite Oz getting the Trump endorsement, despite David McCormick, her other rival, having a slew of Trump aides in his campaign. She has been out on the campaign trail talking the Donald Trump talking points. She has been continuing to claim that the 2020 election was fraudulent. She has been talking about her staunch stance on abortion. She organized buses to the January 6th rally, and her opponents are only just now starting to really do that opposition research. So the question is for voters, is that too late? And I've been talking to voters on the ground here to see if any of this is resonating, if any of this makes a difference. And here's what voters have told me about Barnett. Listen.
She's a grassroots kind of girl, and I think that I want to give her a shot.
I'm also very pro-life, and I've done research on all of the candidates, and she's the one that stands out as really the only viable option for me as a conservative Catholic.
So, Hallie, there you have it. So far, we haven't actually heard any of what we're seeing on Twitter, any of what we're seeing on the air really have an impact on the people who are going to cast their ballots tomorrow, Hallie.
Dasha Burns, live for us in Scranton. Dasha, real quick, John Fetterman, who's, of course, we've been talking about the Republican side because that is sort of anybody's race. It seems like the Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman is so far ahead in polling, he seems likely to win tomorrow. Of course, you don't until it happens. Any word really quickly here on when he plans to get back on the trail?
It's unclear. We know he is still in the hospital. He is likely going to still be in the hospital tomorrow night, which of course puts a damper on election night. He is still by far the front runner. His wife Giselle, though, will be headlining that event. The two have been sort of campaigning as a package deal, so she will be filling in his stead, Hallie.
Dasha Burns, thank you very much. Good to see you. Primary voters will decide if North Carolina Republican Congressman Madison Cawthorn will get another chance at returning to Washington. He's 26, he's been in Congress for just over a year, and he's created a lot of controversy over everything from claiming colleagues invited him to drug-fueled sex parties to more recent headlines showing him in compromising positions, potentially, even wearing lingerie. Congressman Cawthorn faces a crowd of primary challengers, many who jumped into the race after he decided to run in another district before he came back to the 11th district. The crowded field may end up working to his advantage. Antonia Hilton takes a closer look at the GOP race in western North Carolina.
North Carolina Congressman Madison Cawthorn wants to be reelected.
I'm Madison Cawthorn, and I approve this message.
The 26-year-old Republican is one of the youngest ever elected to serve in the House. But over his first term, he quickly found himself mired in controversy. An ardent Trump supporter, Cawthorn rallied people ahead of the January 6th Capitol riot and helped push conspiracy theories about election fraud.
Oh, hey, we're going to have kind of a sexual get-together at one of our homes. You should come. And I'm like,
in March, he claimed lawmakers were doing drugs and hosting sex parties, a move that stunned even his Republican colleagues. He's made headlines for being charged a second time for driving with a revoked license, caught trying to bring a gun on a plane, and has been accused by several women of sexual harassment, claims he has denied. There have been sexually charged images of Cawthorn leaked, including pics of Cawthorn wearing lingerie and one video showing him naked in a bed, thrusting against another man's head, a video Cawthorn calls foolish. On the ground in his home state, Cawthorn has been accused by voters NBC News spoke with of neglecting his responsibilities to the community he serves and insulting others in his own party, something he's using to further his own campaign. One recent Republican poll shows Cawthorn's unfavorable rating amongst GOP primary voters in North Carolina jumped from 29% in March to 44% in April.
I have never voted in Washington.
The bad blood has the state's top Republicans, including Senator Tom Tillis, backing one of Cawthorn's 7 challengers, State Senator Chuck Edwards. Others vying for the 11th district seat include a state hotel owner and a retired Army colonel. Cawthorn has the support of former President Trump, whose endorsements have proven key in 39 out of 40 Republican primaries so far this year. But it's voters who will get the final say.
Antonia Hilton is joining me now live from North Carolina. So, Antonia, right at the end there, you mentioned former President Trump backing Congressman Cawthorn. He's reiterating that support today, saying, sure, basically he's made some mistakes, but voters should give him a second chance. You talked about the former president's track record here. Why is this, in the eyes of some experts, Cawthorn's race to lose? Explain the dynamics at play.
Well, initially, this really was his race to lose, right, Hallie, because he emerged very quickly as the star, got great name recognition early out the gate. He's been firmly in Trump's camp and has Trump's endorsement. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, I was here in North Carolina at a Trump rally where Madison Cawthorn received one of the loudest cheers and supports from the audience there of the entire night, more than Ted Budd did in the Senate race. And so, in addition to that, he's now looking at these 7 challengers. State Senator Chuck Edwards has emerged as his most fearsome opponent. But with those 7 challengers in place, it's going to be hard for them to potentially knock him out tomorrow on Tuesday because it's such a crowded field. So in many ways, this really is his race to lose. But right now, people are circling the wagons on him here in the state, North Carolina, but also in Washington, D.C., Hallie.
What is the congressman's campaign saying ahead of the primary tomorrow?
Well, they are trying to project strength. They've brushed off scandal after scandal. They told NBC News that they see their argument still winning in Western North Carolina and that he has really built a good relationship with his constituents, that he takes his constituent feedback into account and into the way that he operates in Washington. And that's been one of the major pieces that his opponents have hit him on, saying that he really hasn't fulfilled his promises to constituents. But he's remaining confident, and really it's going to end up coming down to the voters, as I said in that piece. And if it's not him, it looks like it'll be Chuck Edwards potentially. But again, this is really his to lose because all the wind was initially at his back.
Antonia Hilton, live for us there in North Carolina. Thanks, Antonia. I'm sure we'll see you tomorrow, primary day. Appreciate it. Still ahead. Officials are trying to figure out why a plane crash landed on a bridge. Look at this in Miami. We've got more details. Yikes, coming up in the local. Plus, an NBC News exclusive. We're hearing from the passenger who landed a plane after the pilot had a medical emergency. Hear how Darren Harrison says it all went down just ahead. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day. And because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. From our Southeast Bureau, one person was killed and 5 others hurt after this small plane crash landed on a bridge in Miami. The plane went down, it hit an SUV, and then burst into flames. You saw how thick that smoke was. It could be seen for miles. The FAA and the NTSB are trying to figure out how this happened. From our Northeast Bureau, surveillance video shows 4 masked men smashing their way into a Yonkers jewelry store You see this? Sledgehammers, a crowbar. Only took him 90 seconds to get away with like $100,000 worth of stuff. 3 of those robbers are now in custody. Police say they're looking into whether this is connected to recent smash and grabs in the Bronx. And from our Washington bureau, Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen says he's recovering from a minor stroke he had after giving a speech this weekend. He says he felt lightheaded, some neck pain while giving the speech. He released a statement overnight saying there's no long-term damage and he plans to be back to work after a few days' rest. For the very first time now, we're hearing from the hero passenger who landed a plane on his own, no training, after the pilot had a medical emergency. I know you remember this story from last week, right? It was everywhere. And this, the guy you just saw, that's Darren Harrison. He was at the controls in the cockpit, talking exclusively with, of course, our Today Show's Savannah Guthrie about what it was like being there in that seat, thousands of feet in the air, after the pilot let him know he just wasn't feeling right. Harrison had been, you saw that picture? That was Harrison, just like straight chilling with his feet on the seat, when suddenly, he says, he had to make a choice when the pilot told him that. Listen.
I knew it was a life or death situation. Either you do what you have to do to control the situation or you're going to die.
Well, he made that choice to control the situation, obviously, with the help of a flight instructor on the ground. Let me bring in Sam Brock here with this guy, Darren Harrison, making this safe landing, Sam. It is so incredible what he did. Tell me more. Tell me everything about what was going through this guy's mind, right? As he's sitting there, pilot has a medical emergency. It's not like he's had flight training.
No. How much time do you have, Hallie?
4 minutes.
Let's go through what the background is right now on this guy, Darren Harrison. So it turns out he's a flooring sales specialist. Not exactly the same thing as aviation. I wouldn't say it's even a cousin of aviation. Now, he does have a lot of friends who know how to fly, but just because they're pilots doesn't mean there's a law of transference there that he suddenly learns how to fly. And yet, instinctively, he jumped in. One of the most difficult things that Darren talked with Savannah about was just getting into that pilot seat because the pilot himself was still there, leaned back in the seat. He had to reach over the pilot and then try to figure out what's going on the dashboard because the GPS was not functioning properly. He tries to put on headphones. The headphones are frayed, meaning there's no communication at that point with air traffic control. So he's trying to sort through all of this as the plane, Hallie, is nosediving toward the Caribbean. Here's what he told our Savannah Guthrie about how he fought through all of that.
I grabbed the controls of the airplane and slowly started to pull back on the stick and turn.
How did you know how to do that?
Just common sense, I guess, being on airplanes, because I knew if I went up and yanked that the airplane would stall. And I also knew at the rate we were probably going way too fast and it would rip the wings off the airplane.
And Hallie, it also bears repeating here that we saw that picture earlier in your introduction to the story of Darren Harrison lying back on the seat with his feet up. You notice there was no shoes on his feet. He was barefoot the entire time. He had been in flip-flops, but he was just relaxing. He took that picture for his wife so she could see what his accommodations look like. Minutes later, that's when this entire experience begins with the pilot reporting. There's the picture. Right. The pilot reporting that he wasn't feeling well, and he sprang into action right from there.
By the way, his pregnant wife, right? I mean, he's about to become a dad. He's in this life or death situation, but he told Savannah he was thinking about, he never actually was thinking about, dying, basically. Let me play that piece.
As I was climbing to the front and that plane was in a dive, I was just looking, going, I can't die today. Brittany's pregnant. I got a baby on the way. Not today. Today's not my day.
Sam, I have chills listening to this guy talk, right?
Me too.
Because I hear him and I think, first of all, common sense, don't jerk up on the, I would not, I have common sense. I don't know that I would have known to do that in that moment when the adrenaline is coursing through your body. This is a family that have been through a lot, What is next for this incredibly sort of clearly calm and poised and collected person who, in the midst of this life or death moment, had the presence of mind to do what he did?
His composure is awe-striking. I think we know that for sure. He and his wife, Brittany, are expecting a child in about 2 months. So what's next for them is they're going to have a baby. He knew he was going to live, survive through this experience for them, if for nothing else. He said he felt like the hand of God was directing that plane down onto the runway and helping him through it. He's a man of faith. But you also mentioned they've been through a lot, Hallie. His wife, Brittany, she said to Savannah that about a year ago that she lost her brother-in-law, that her sister was pregnant, and they had a death in the family. So as soon long as Brittany got that phone call on her cell phone. She said, I time out his flights just to make sure I know about when he's going to arrive. He was calling me 20 minutes early. I did not know what I was about to hear. I was just hoping he was on the other line. That makes the hair on the back of my skin stand up as well, just relaying that. And amazingly, this all came together. Everyone is okay.
Incredible. So he has no plans to go to flight school and make a career of this?
Maybe he has a lost calling here now. Suddenly, that is going to change the trajectory of his life, because this is a man, like you said, it's not instinctive. Who knows to sort of pull up on the controls slightly so as to not rip the wings off of the plane, and yet somehow he did it with aplomb. Color me impressed.
Dude, same thing. Sam Brock, I'm so glad we're talking about this story, and kudos to Savannah. It was an incredible interview. We're going to see more on Nightly tonight as well. Sam Brock, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Hallie.
Coming up after the break, a lot more news to get to. Amber Heard, back on the stand in court today, talking about that op-ed she wrote about being a domestic abuse survivor. What she had to say about that and a whole lot more next. Right before we came on the air tonight, lawyers for Johnny Depp accused his ex-wife, Amber Heard, of lying about the abuse she has alleged in their marriage, claiming she was the abuser during cross-examination.
Once he left you, you continued to abuse him publicly by calling him an abuser, didn't you?
He is an abuser, and you can look either of us up online and figure out who's being abused online.
Heard explaining her decision to publish that 2018 Washington Post op-ed where she wrote she was a survivor of domestic violence. But she never mentioned Johnny Depp's name. She said she had no intention of going after her ex.
The only one who thought it was about Johnny is Johnny. It's about me. It's about what happened to me after Johnny. It's about what happened to me after I escaped my marriage.
Heard also called those accusations from Depp's lawyers about lying about her alleged abuse torture. Depp is suing Heard for $50 million for defamation over that Washington Post op-ed. She's countersuing him for $100 million, also for defamation. Let me bring in now Steve Patterson, who's following this for us tonight. So, Steve, you have Johnny Depp's lawyers trying to say that Amber Heard is lying about these claims of abuse because there were not, she didn't have visible evidence of it, right? Visible marks in those days after the accusations. Yeah. How's that strategy been playing out?
I think it's been fairly effective. Remember, we've just heard 4 days or so of excruciating detail from Amber Heard speaking to her attorneys about what she alleges happened over and over and over again. These instances of domestic violence, of sexual violence, of physical violence, of emotional violence, and so much of that, has been from Heard. And to hear now Depp's attorneys, which have really come with knives out, and to go almost point by point on all of these instances, to have a photo, to have a video, to have an appearance on a talk show where Amber Heard doesn't appear to have marks, doesn't appear to have a broken nose or a busted lip, all the things that she's described. I think it's been rather effective. Whether or not the jury believes all of this, whether or not, this is an effective strategy in the court when it comes to a libel suit, I don't know. What I can tell you is in the court of public opinion, I'm watching this trial with 700,000 people in one YouTube video, and certainly on social media, people seem to agree with the strategy. Hallie.
So let me ask you about that, because there's sort of this telling moment that happened when, I think that happens on a regular basis, when Johnny Depp and Amber Heard arrive to and then leave the courtroom, right? Let me play. What you're about to see is just a little bit of audio from that. I think it gives a flavor to our viewers of what it's like outside the courthouse in those moments. Watch.
Good morning. How are
you? So that's Amber Heard walking in to booze, basically. Johnny Depp walking in to cheers. Steve, what is up with this, what feels like pretty drastic split in support here? Do we know what's behind that? Is it because Johnny Depp has this huge fan base? Like, what is this?
Well, first, you can multiply that times 100 when you go online. Yeah. When you go to any place on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I personally do not know. Certainly, many people are trying to theorize, like everybody has an op-ed on this online. The one that I've most sort of aligned with is the fact that in this case, based on the facts of the case and what's been alleged, there are no heroes. So I think people are kind of grasping on to the guy they know, the multiple sexiest man alive, multiple Academy Award award nominee, you know, the guy, Captain Jack Sparrow, that everybody grew up with, globbing onto that. Haven't heard a bombshell from Heard's case that would dissuade them or dispel them from that, Hallie. It's all I can come up with.
Steve Patterson, thank you for being on top of this for us. Appreciate it. And that does it for us this hour. It's good to be back with you. We'll have more for you here tomorrow, same time, same place. Coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.